Jack here, JBF Music and Guitar Lessons. In this quick guitar tricks, we're looking at what are probably the 5 most common triplets or shred picking patterns using basic 6-note groupings. We'll look at these in isolation, how you could use them in a run, and give you a rough idea of how to use them when writing or improvising. These examples will be tabbed out, slowed down, so hopefully by the end of this you should have 6 new patterns which can be smoothly interchanged on the fly, and a whole ton of new variations, combinations and lick permutations. Okay, each line here outlines the backbones for the upcoming licks. The reason I've split them up will hopefully be clearer by the end of this, but in a nutshell, with these patterns you can do a whole lot. They can be doubled up, taken through scales, and should interchange in a fairly intuitive way. First up we have this one. And this. So basically the same idea but split over 2 strings for the second half of that bar. Pretty much that, but coming down the scale for bar 2. And bar 3 we've got this. This is quite a Malmsteen thing to do. Again, you could repeat this on adjacent strings, doubling it to get a 12-note idea. You could skip strings with it. And use it to go either up or down in pitch on the same string. I mean, you can use the first 2 bars either way, but generally bar 1 works well for going up, and bar 2 for coming down in pitch. Start slow with these lines. If you've not played them before, maybe pause the video and try them out for a few times. On to the next set of patterns, the typical Paul Gilbert warm-up exercise. For more on his picking, check out that card up there. And this one. So both these are actually the same, just starting on a different note. So if you can play one of them, you can play both of them. Any issues are quite often psychological more than anything else. If you're not totally comfortable with what sometimes gets called inside or outside picking, that's the other main possibility. Thinking of it in terms of pick slanting is probably more helpful, and you can find out more about that topic as sort of pick slanting 101 with a quick lesson with the card up there. But yeah, in the next bar we've got that last idea, but just inverted. And the second half of that bar. Generally speaking, that last example will work better when you're descending through the licks using the system, and the previous one lends itself to more ascending runs. Not always the case, but it's a good rule of thumb or starting point at the very least. And finally, we have a 12-note pattern. As a side note, this works really well in conjunction with the first idea in this new group. For example, you could play that first group of 6 notes up there twice, and then go into this 12-note idea. So you'd have... Okay, so how do we lickify these? All I'm doing here is ascending the scale in what I find to be a fairly finger-friendly way. All of these are in A minor, all the upcoming licks will be in A Aeolian. using the same sorts of 3 notes per string shapes, just for a bit of consistency. So with the first example we looked at, you could apply it like this. It's a decent enough run, but nothing super exciting. And picking all these notes here, you can use as much or as little legato as you want to. Paul Gilbert's trick of picking and mixing the two together might be useful, lesson card up there. A simple way of making it a bit less standard sounding is to mix it up with some more string crossing. Still exclusively picking 6 notes as per bar 1 in that intro backbone bit we looked at, but in a less predictable way. So just using these two ideas, this one and this one, which are both based around that same finger movement. So the next example lick uses that second idea we looked at, and we're taking the lick back down. Again, this is something, if you listen to a fair bit of guitar music, you've probably heard before. We're not reinventing the wheel here. What we're doing is breaking down shred runs and reverse engineering them. On that note, if you like this approach, let me know with a thumbs up and in those comments as well. If you want other content similar to this in your feed, don't forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell. But yeah, it's a bit of a cliched lick, but I reckon it's still a pretty sweet sounding run. And as you may have guessed, what we're doing is taking the third idea, that one, through the same sort of journey. Not too much to say here. At higher speeds, I'd probably pick the first 4, then pull off the next 2. Like that. And so on. Don't forget that these are just starting points. You can take this idea up and down all over the fretboard, use legato runs, it's all fair play. Okay, mixing in the Paul Gilbert exercise next. Here I've taken it through octaves, so position shifts with each new string set. Ending with the bend, just to start to integrate other techniques and make things a tad more musical. So while this pattern works quite well for the ascending licks going up in pitch, the inverse that I mentioned earlier in that backbone section usually falls in line with more descending licks, like this one. Forgive the slop on that last note there, just trying to resolve it to A. So mixing up this idea with straight descending groups of 6. In bar 2 we're using the displaced variation. For more on that, check out this card here. So rather than going, we're starting here and going again combining that with some descending groups of 6. So hopefully this is starting to show how these building blocks can be put together to create something greater than the sum of their parts. Finally, we've got that 12 note group, and here I'm just taking up the same scale shape we've been using for most of the licks. If you want to prolong this run, try adding in the Gilbert exercise idea in this one just whenever you feel like it. So you could randomize it a bit. So say we started off, we could put in the Gilbert exercise here. So you could go. So you can kind of switch between the two a little bit. Cool, so the final thing I'm going to say here is to try these out as fast as possible, but as slow as necessary when you're jamming. Try picking every note, try doing extended legato, 3 note per string pentatonics, mix all of these things up. Once that's starting to feel good, move between the positions more. That Yngwie sort of one is really good for that, you know, moving up and down one string there. Then add in slides, bends, and all other sorts of note manipulations. If you break it down like that, it should work its way more easily, slightly more naturally or intuitively into your playing. By no means are these the only good patterns, but there's an awful lot you can do with them. As good a starting point as I can think of. Those were some standard 6-note groupings for 3-note per string scales. This has been Quick Guitar Tricks. That's the playlist there. For more shred tips, check out this video. But yeah, if you've enjoyed this and want to stay up to date with new content, hit subscribe, click like, that does really seem to help the channel out. Share across social media, leave me a comment and enable notifications by ringing that little bell on the side, if you feel so inclined. Cheers guys.